Welcome, everybody, to the ComportSecure and Veeam Office 365 Data Protection webinar. I'm Hannah Coney, Business Development for ComportSecure. This is our second webinar around Office 365 and SharePoint. It's probably the most important one because so much has changed. Veeam just released the newest version, and if you've been following, there's a lot of key features that have been updated in that we will touch on today. Talking about these changes in version 3 and what's new is going to be the Chief Technology Officer, Eric Krucker, for ComportSecure and Comport. We also have our Cloud Solutions Architect, Eric Young, with us, and Lee Rivas, Veeam Software Cloud System Engineer. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining today to brief everyone on how to leverage Veeam backups for Office 365 and SharePoint. Before we get into the fun part, I want to take a minute to run through the agenda. And we've got some housekeeping items as well. Today we're going to introduce those of you who are new to who exactly ComportSecure is, and we're going to follow that with key reasons to leverage Veeam and ComportSecure to protect your data. Our engineers will give everybody a hands-on demo of how data is protected and recovered, and then we're going to conclude with the best practices and Q&A throughout the webinar. The key there is to make sure that you're placing any questions that you think of into the questions box, and at the end we'll go through and our team can answer them and follow up with you accordingly. Okay, so who is ComportSecure? Well, if you are new, we are a leading cloud and data protection company who has partnered with Veeam to provide the best in-class solutions to our customers as they progress through their cloud transformation. If you're familiar with who we are, then you know if you're a customer or you've worked with us in the past, that we are a great extension to your team, and we're a partner who cares about helping your organization succeed and grow. It's key to us that we deliver on our 4 core competencies: backup as a service, disaster recovery as a service, infrastructure as a service, and managed services. And these 4, powered by Veeam, have really helped us to allow us to provide you with flexible solutions that meet your needs, not just for today, but as you hope to grow, or ways in which you might not see coming, but so that you're prepared for what the future has to bring. IT is changing. Every day we have customers who reach out to us who they might not have been prepared to move to the cloud, but they see that it's inevitable and they need our help in making sure that they can get there. And that's what we pride ourselves in doing. We operate out of the highest tier data centers, so your data is secure and safe, and we have a team that can help you figure out how to get from point A to point B if you're confused or don't have the resources to do so in between. I want to move over to Eric Krucker, our Chief Technology Officer. Eric's going to talk to you guys today around the problem with Office 365 and SharePoint and why we're here to actually learn more about what we can do to protect that data. Eric, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. I appreciate it. So just to give everybody some context, everybody knows no secret since 2011, Microsoft Office 365 has been growing by leaps and bounds. There's about 150 million plus Office 365 users, and Microsoft is growing about 20 to 30% year over year. And the average, what everybody can get for a service is either a 50 gig or 100 gig mailbox. And most organizations have a small group of power users usually who are always pushing the limits, and then everybody else within the organization. And I don't know about everyone else, but in most organizations I've been affiliated with, all the power users are generally CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, all the executive suite or the management staff. Usually they push the envelope as to what it is that they're doing with email. And the big problem here is that what Microsoft provides is uptime for Office 365 and the infrastructure in order to run the infrastructure for Office 365, and then it's up to the users to protect their data. So if we could move to the next slide, please, Anne. So it's a shared model, right? So Office, as I said, Microsoft owns the infrastructure. They provide the services for you, but you own it, you control it. That's both with security and with protecting your data. So it's a shared model where you have to take on some of the burden for yourself. It's not just all on Microsoft. And a lot of customers that I talk to believe that all of this is on Microsoft. So once they finish and they migrate all their users over to Office 365, that they can let go of control and they don't have to worry about these things. But the same things that we worry about with on-prem as it pertains to security and in this context, data protection and backup, you still have to take into consideration when you move all of your data to Office 365. And we're not just talking about email here, right? So a lot of users started off with email and they migrated their mailboxes over to Office 365. And then with OneDrive, people started moving data into their OneDrives. Very easy, a lot of integration with Windows 10 in particular. So Microsoft's making it easier for you to store more data within their ecosystem. And of course, a lot of people are using SharePoint as an intranet or to share data within their organization. So next slide, please, Hannah. So Microsoft allows, as I said, for you guys to put your data out there, and they'll help you gain access to it, high availability. They provide a recycle bin to your data, and the data is available for a certain amount of time. But beyond that, it's up to you for long-term protection, for compliance reasons. So if a user deletes their email and you're not backing up your data, and then you get a legal request, you're pretty much on your own. You have no real recourse with Microsoft. You can call them, you can complain all you'd like, but that's not really their responsibility. They keep that data within the recycle bin for a certain amount of time, and then it's gone forever. Hannah, if you can move to the next slide, please. So here's pretty much the level of protection that Microsoft is going to provide to you. Right? So the most you can get is a month, right? So junk emails. So sometimes important emails accidentally end up in junk. They'll be deleted within 2 weeks. And if somebody accidentally deletes an email, it'll be gone within a month. And then if you disable a user and they leave the organization, disable them, data will also be gone within a month. So there's no long-term protection there from Microsoft in a native way. So you have to take care of that on your own, which is where Veeam comes in. So you could put in certain protections within Microsoft ecosystem. You can also put your data into archive if you want to, but data can also get deleted from archive permanently from the archive. So again, that's up to you to protect your data. So if somebody maliciously goes in and gets access to a user's data and they just go and delete their mailbox, or somebody does something nefarious, you basically have 30 days to A, find out that there is a problem, and then B, to remediate that problem. And a lot of users don't really understand that. So again, this is where the flexibility of Veeam comes into play. So you can back up all of your data both on-prem and off-prem out in the Microsoft Cloud and Office 365 with Veeam. They give you granular protections, granular policies, so you can set the level of data protection that you want to get within your organization as your organization and the business seems fit. So there's a lot of risk out there, as I said, particularly within the C-suite and users who may have accidentally deleted their emails and want to get them back, or somebody who's doing something nefarious deletes the CIO's email, gets access to the CIO's email, starts deleting things. So you want to think about that type of thing as a risk to the organization. And again, this is where Veeam can come in and help you protect. So with that, I'm going to introduce Lee Rivas. He's SE with Veeam, and he's going to take it from here. Lee?
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. So Veeam continues to grow year after year, setting the standard in pace and backup software. So we protect the data of 75% of the Fortune 500, and Veeam's Net Promoter Score is more than twice the industry average. All right, next slide. Thanks. Veeam is a software company, right? So that means we don't sell our hardware to backup to, which gives you the options to use what you want as a repository, right? Also, from that perspective, Veeam isn't a cloud, but we leverage partners like Comport to be the cloud for our customers. So this gives the end users the option to use Comport for all of their data protection needs, no matter where they store their data. So Comport will be the choice for backing up your Office data, and you will have the ability to do your own restores. And there will be 25 unique ways to do restores from Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive. And we'll go through all these scenarios next in our live demo in a few minutes. And then, so Eric Young.
Sure. So when we talk about ComportSecure and Veeam and Office 365, it's key to understand that backing up to ComportSecure is essentially a cloud-to-cloud backup. There is no infrastructure or hardware that you need at your location, except for somewhere to run the Veeam Explorers, whether that's the Veeam Explorer for Exchange, OneDrive, or SharePoint. Everything else is from cloud to cloud. So how this would work is you would have your Microsoft Office 365 organization up in the cloud. It backs up to our cloud, and then when you access it, you use the Veeam Explorers, and you will be then connecting to ComportSecure. And when you do a restore back to your Office 365 environment, it'll go from our cloud to the Office 365 cloud, making it easy to do restores, recoveries, exports, or saves, and basically saving your data. Lee, back to you.
All right. And yep, I'm about to show my screen right now. Give me 1 second. All right. So diving into our demo lab here, this is what Veeam Backup for Office 365 looks like. So it's the same familiar green UI that you would see with Veeam Backup Replication. So we have the proxies and the repositories, so all the same components. So this will be from a Comport perspective, where they will add you as an organization, right? So they'll add you, so you could choose to back up just email only, or if you want to protect everything else with SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, everything that's associated to SharePoint. When we check this box, we will have everything covered, right? So the only other thing to mention here from an end user perspective is this is where we're going to set the retention. So from a repository perspective, Comport will base the retention. So kind of going off of what Eric said, if an email gets deleted, or if a user is an exit employee and we shut off that email, Microsoft's only going to keep that data for about 30 days. So we could specify beyond 30 days to keep that data, so we can keep it for a year, 3 years, 5 years, 25 years, keep forever. So it just depends on what your retention is. You'll just identify what your retention requirements are. So if you have certain departments that require further retention, they'll basically set that up for you. So just something to note here. After 30 days, we'll have the ability to keep it as long as we want, right? So Comport will set this up for you.
So yeah, that is a quick note here is that proxy and those repositories, this is all what I was explaining earlier, being up in our cloud, that is our hardware and our infrastructure. So you wouldn't be required to have this on, in your location. And when it comes to the retention policies, that is something that, obviously we'd go through with you as the customer to determine what retention policies are required for, individual groups or your company as a whole. So Lee, can you explain the difference between the file level retention and the snapshot level retention?
Yeah, so with version 3 that just came out, it gives us the ability to, so if customers love the ability to do item level restores when they do restores, right? So they can kind of go into the job and kind of go file level and retrieve whatever they need. So item level retention and then snapshot retention is basically the actual state of each mailbox. So let's say we're backing up daily. We're going to have like a snapshot daily. So that's kind of our more historical backup method. But now we have the ability to kind of retrieve and back up and retrieve in different ways to kind of match with Veeam Backup Replication, where we can do item level. So kind of a full backup and then increments, same way as Veeam Backup Replication. All right. Yeah. So as Eric mentioned, this is what the Comport user perspective will look like. Um, so what Comport's going to do, they're going to back up your data. They're going to store it. They're going to supply you with different explorers for Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive. So you will have the ability. This gives you the ability to do exactly what I'm doing right here. So, for example, for Exchange, we want to retrieve an email. You can do this right here. So you can pull your Exchange open. We can connect to Comport as a service provider. So you'll use your organization credentials here. This will already be linked to Comport using Cloud Connect. So Comport will link that for you with a standalone VMback replication server if you're using that for backup as a service already. If not, they'll do that link. But from that perspective, we're then encrypting the TLS connection across the WAN. We're going to use our cloud gateway services where everything will kind of, you'll be able to see all your backups here, and then you'll just use your organization credentials to connect to your backups. So we can specify the latest point in time, or we can go back to a certain amount of days. So let's say we're looking for an email from March 1st, so about a month ago. So we'll just select that here. I won't authenticate to it here, but we'll basically see everything that we're seeing here. So right away, you will have the ability to see all of your customers that you're backing up. So not only are we looking at all of the mailboxes that we're backing up, so right away from the mailbox perspective, let's say a mailbox got deleted totally. We can restore that back to production right away by right-clicking restore. We can restore to any Exchange service that we want. We can convert this to a PST file on the desktop, or just export it wherever we want. So, if it's an end user, we can PST that right away. PST is an archive file. So not only can we do this from the mailbox perspective, we have public folders, public calendars, public mailboxes, shared mailboxes. All of that's included, so you'll be able to see all of that here. So let's see if Blake has an email.
So Lee, how about individual emails?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So we can restore calendars, contacts, subfolders, even individual emails to answer your question. So we can look inside the context of their inbox from March 1st, right? So we went back to March 1st. We can open up the emails to see that we're restoring the right one. We can open up attachments if we need to. Let's say hypothetically, your end user, whoever wants their email restored, all the information they gave you was, hey, I'm missing emails. I'm missing about 50 emails, and that's on the information they gave you. So based off of that, you can ask them, well, how long was it, when you saw those emails? They'll tell you 30 days ago, right? So we can click this button here to compare what's in production right now to that, March 1st increment that I selected. It'll flag those changes right away, and then so we'll be able to identify all those 50 emails here, and then all we have to do is highlight those, and we can restore back to production. So from an email perspective, we can restore back to production, to any email. So again, PST file, we can convert it to an archive file, MSG file, or we can email it to any email that we want, or we can send through an email. So these are all of our restore capabilities. Let's say we try to find an email from here. We can't find it. We can search through all of his subfolders. So we'll click the top of it. We can search here. Can't find it there. We can go to the top of the hierarchy. Again, search for an email, let's say from Veeam.com, from 30 days ago. If we can't find that here, well, let's just give another hypothetical. So legal, they're looking for an email from 3 years ago. They couldn't really tell you where that email came from or who it went to. They just, all they can tell you is there's something specific in their signature, right? So there's a signature that had this kind of phone number or something like that. So with that information, we can actually use that and still find that email. We can actually look for signature, contain this exact value. We can put that value right here. We're back, we're looking from a backup from 3 years ago, and it'll pull all the results here. So based on that, we can get very granular on the search capability. So the way we're backing up, we can use eDiscovery to kind of just find things just on the fly, just like that. So this is the Explorer for Exchange, right? So a lot of functionality there. From a SharePoint perspective, again, you will be able to, as soon as this comes up, to link to Comport's backup. So again, we'll just do the drop down to add database, and we'll connect to Comport as well. From here, right away, we not only will we be able to retrieve, certain contents, so if you have an ASPX file that's corrupt, we can restore that back to production. We can save it, we can zip it, we can email it to wherever we need it to go. If we have documents that are associated, again, we'll have that same capability. Let's say a whole site went down, it was corrupt or whatever, it got deleted. All we have to do is right click and restore this full site, and it'll give you these options here where, if we want to kind of find anything that's been changed, any items that are missing, or if we just want to restore permissions, if permissions got corrupted, list views, subsites, etc., we can pick and choose what we want to restore to from that backup to the site. So when we identify what we want to change, we can choose to overwrite what's in production right now, or we can choose to merge and have available those files on top of what we have existing. So many different ways and a lot of capabilities to do a SharePoint restore. All right, and then lastly, we will have an Explorer for OneDrive. So same thing, right? We can again connect to Comport as our service provider organization. From this perspective, we will see all of the users' OneDrives. We will be able to, again, find the documents or PDFs or whatever we need, so we can have that advanced find search capabilities. But here we can restore full OneDrive sites if they get deleted or whatever. We can override or keep, copy to, save, and then from individual files, we'll have the ability to again overwrite, keep, copy, save, zip it, or send it from a OneDrive perspective. So, all right, that is pretty much the Office 365 from a high level. Back to you, Eric. Actually, give me 1 second. There we go.
So you need to hand it back to Hannah?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And Hannah, okay, yeah, next slide.
Great, thank you, Lee. You got a couple more slides here, and then a couple more from Eric Young as well before we get into the Q&A. And I know that was a lot of information for everybody there in the live demo, but it really does show you how granular you can get with Office 365, OneDrive, and SharePoint. So thank you, Lee.
Yeah, and I'll talk about this slide lastly, and I'll hand it back over to Eric. Thank you, Hannah. And then so with version 3 that just came out, our backups for SharePoint and OneDrive are up to, well, actually at least 30 times faster. Some end users even reported 75 times faster backups for SharePoint and OneDrive, which can be pretty sizable. Can take a while because there is a lot of information to back up because we're backing up files. So, a lot of improvements from that perspective, and also from that perspective, we can majorly decrease the size of the repository for the services as well. So, with that, also with version 3, again, to kind of reflect off of Eric's slide, anything past 30 days or longer, we can meet those regulatory compliance needs, where we will store those, for legal purposes, SOX Sarbanes-Oxley, things of that nature, where we are required to keep those emails. We have all that covered there, right? So, again, to kind of go off with my demo, we have some very granular advanced find and search capabilities. Because we're backing up, the way that we back up, we have some really good e-discovery, archiving, and recovery mechanisms for that. And also with version 3, our default mode is we now have the ability to use MFA, multi-factor authentication, to not only for backups but also for restores. So just added security, and I'm sure you guys know what MFA is already. So with that, yeah, I'll turn that back over to Eric. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Lee. So yeah, there's 6 reasons why backing up Office 365 is critical to your business. The first one being accidental deletion. If you delete a user, as we talked about before, whether you mean to or not, that deletion is replicated across your network. So within Office 365, there are basically 2 types of deletions. You can do a soft delete and a hard delete. An example of a soft delete is emptying your deleted items folder. It is also kind of referred to as a permanently deleted. In this case, permanent is not completely permanent. It can still be found in a recoverable items mailbox. However, a hard delete is when an item is tagged to be purged from the mailbox completely. Once this happens, it is unrecoverable, period. So there are some, number 2 is the retention policy gaps and confusion. It can be confusing when dealing with Microsoft as far as what their retention is, and confusion along that line. So they're hard to keep up with, let alone manage. The backup for Veeam Office 365 provides a longer, more accessible retention where everything is protected and stored in one place, that being ComportSecure, for easy recovery. So 3 and 4 are both ones that I actually like to combine because it concerns security threats, whether that's internal or external. Internal could be a disgruntled employee who wants to delete a CEO's email, or somebody who has a legal hold on their email and they're deleting the emails to get rid of evidence. The external security threats can be anything from malware. Malware is easily downloadable through email, whether or not your users have been trained or not. Training your users is not your only method of preventing malware. So both of these, having a backup solution, will allow you to recover, quickly. When it comes to legal and compliance requirements, you want to make sure that you can retrieve your mailbox data during legal action to meet any regulatory compliance needs. If you delete, Microsoft does have a litigation hold, but if you delete that user during that litigation hold, everything is deleted and it's gone anyway. Now you can't recover it. And number 6, managing the hybrid email deployments and migrations to Office 365. So if you have an Office 365, up in the cloud, and you also have a local install where you're migrating locally to an Office 365, you want to be able to manage all your backups from one single pane of glass and make it easier for you. Anna? I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, it's actually me again. So yeah, Office 365's recommended best practices. So this is what we recommend. This is Comport's recommendations and Veeam's recommendations. You want to use a multi-factor authentication, something like Duo or RSA. You want to configure your data loss prevention. That's where Veeam's Office 365 backup comes into play. You want to make sure your backups are pointed to a secure data center, and that would be ComportSecure. We have the highest rated tier data centers in the U.S. over in the West Coast and on the East Coast. And you want to establish your retention policies and publish them inside your company. This way the users know exactly what's being backed up and how long the emails are being backed up. And then it's very important that you know and understand your SLAs from Microsoft themselves. Hannah? All yours.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, Lee. We did have a couple questions that popped into the question box during the webinar, so I want to throw those out so that we can get some answers to those and everyone can hear those. If there's anyone that has any questions as well, please go ahead and throw them in. We'll take the next few minutes to review those. Eric and Lee, the first one is, can I have different retention policies for different mailboxes or users?
I'll take that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yes, absolutely. So we can set up the jobs and we can divide them up as far as, down to business units, down to users, or even, SharePoint sites or OneDrive. And we can set up different retention policies for each of those. So you could have, 1 year for your help desk and then, keep permanently for your C levels.
Great. Lee, anything to add to that?
No, he said it perfect.
Okay, awesome. The second question we have here is, we do not have Office 365 currently, but we are interested in deploying that. Is there a way in which we can work with Lee and Eric to do so? They must really like you, Lee and Eric. You can work with ComportSecure to do that. We are a Microsoft cloud service provider as well. So not only can ComportSecure help protect your data after you've implemented Office 365 and the backups, but we can also help you migrate to Office 365 and then to deploy the Veeam software as well to back up that data. So great question. Our professional services team is all hands on deck for that as well. So we can definitely be of help there. And then those are the two questions that we have, gentlemen. So thank you so much again for hopping on. Again, everybody, Office 365 SharePoint data protection. If you were on the webinar, you will receive a recording of this to share with your team if you'd like to, or reference back to. And if there's any questions that have come out of today that later on you think of, please feel free to reach out to us at info@comportsecure.com. We are happy to set up a trial for your backup as a service to ComportSecure's data center from your SharePoint or your Office 365 or OneDrive environment, and we are able to give you that for a couple weeks to test, get under the hood, and play with. So feel free to reach out to us if you would be interested in that, and thank you all for hopping on today.